G'day and welcome to Dog Talk. I'm Dan Camilleri.
And I'm Laura McKillop. We'd like to start by thanking Enduro for their ongoing support in bringing you our live weekly Q&A. Tonight, we're fortunate enough to be speaking with Lyndon Cooper from the Cooma Kelpies.
Lyndon will be picking who he thinks has asked the best question of the night, and they will win a bag of Enduro Plus high-energy food for working dogs with real kangaroo meat.
Hey, Lyndon, how you going?
Yeah, I'm well, thanks, Laura. How are you guys?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good, thanks, buddy. How's your day been?
Pretty good. Been the same old at the moment. A lot of feeding and things like that. It's pretty dry over here, so it's a lot of feeding going on.
Praying for a bit of rain, mate?
Yeah, had a little bit of a drizzle over the weekend, but nowhere near enough. Only 7 mil, so need a lot more than that to get us started.
So we'll jump straight into it. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and a little bit about a background of you?
Yeah, sure. I live at Victor Harbour, which is just south of Adelaide at the moment. I was born in Kingston, down the southeast of South Australia, and lived on a farm there. My dad was a real good stockman and horseman, and had dogs. So we've been around dogs and horses and what have you all our lives. Used to go riding horses all the time with him, and around livestock, and basically everything was to do with animals, really. So brought up with animals. When I was home on holidays at one stage, and the neighbour, when I was about 16, I think, and he came over and wanted to know if I'd go over and help him over the school holidays, and well, that was the end of that, wasn't it? So there was no going back to school after that. So I didn't stay with him all that long, although all the work we done there was on horseback as well. So it was all with animals, and I always had a bit of a fascination for machinery. So I had a guy that was a land developing contractor, and I spoke to him, and he offered me a job with him, and I thought, this driving tractors and the seeding and all that sort of thing would be pretty good for a while, a bit of a learning curve. So I went to work for him, and he was a great guy. He was a bit of a different character. He couldn't read or write. But a very astute businessman. I actually lived with him and his wife for 4 years, and I probably learnt more from him in my whole life than I did from anyone else I ever worked for. He made us work hard, but he always had a lot of advice, and show, if you're interested in what was going on, he was quite open and helpful to teach you what to do and things like that. So, and a lot of things that he told me and said to me over the years has sort of resonated in and how I've sort of lived my life, really. He always said, if you work hard, take every opportunity that comes your way and make the best of everything that comes along, you'll do okay. So yeah, I went to work for him for a long time, and then I sort of left there and went on to another short-on stud, which again was to do with horseback and dogs and everything else. And probably that's when I really started to get into working more with dogs. Because there was more sheep on that property as well. So, and then I got offered a manager's job. So, when I think about it, I never ever rode a motorbike until I was about 22 years of age, and I think that was probably a really good grounding for me as far as learning about animals and stockmanship and the way stock move. So that was very good. And then as I said, I went and started managing a property, managed the property for 13 years. And during that time, I had a stroke of luck. Actually, I won a 4-wheel drive vehicle
Yeah.
and I actually sold it, and the money we got for that. I'll go back a step, because when we were at the Shorthorn Stud, that's when I met Di, and we got married at that stage, and then I moved on to this other job, and I won this 4-wheel drive, and I sold that, and the money we got for that was enough for the deposit on our first property.
Beautiful.
Lovely.
So that was pretty exciting. Di was a bit worried about the whole business, because she wasn't really into owing money or the like. But that was the start of it all, and we just bought and sold property. We'd buy a property and do it up, and then sell it and buy another one, and overall over the 40 years we've bought and sold 8 properties. So
Yeah, wow.
so it's been a bit of a learning curve, but it's been a hell of a ride. So some pretty rough patches along the way, and anyway, then our youngest son is actually a butcher. So we had the opportunity, when we sold one of the properties down there, that we had the opportunity to buy this butcher shop. So we bought that, and we put Craig in there, and we value added quite a bit of our produce through there, and that turned out to be a really, really good business. So
That's pretty handy.
yeah, no, it was a good business. So and so we had the Kingston properties for 29 years, and the butcher shop for 13, and then Craig wanted to move on. He got married and wanted to move on. So Di and I had a bit of a rethink about our whole life, and the stage of life we were at, and if we ever.
Oh, we've lost his speaker there, mate.
Hear me?
Yep. Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So where was I up to? I can't remember.
No, you're right.
Just talking about the butcher shop.
The butcher shop.
yeah.
Craig wanted to do something else.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Craig got married and moved on, and then we.
I think we lost him again.
His internet service is good. So we got video now.
Can't hear you again.
Oh, there we
There we
go.
go.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. So Di and I had a real good think about what we're doing, and it's quite a story, because the guy that I went to work for and lived with for 4 years, his son lived next door, and he had always wanted to buy our property. So Di and I started looking around up here and up in the hills, and found this particular property that we liked, and so I rang Ian and said, "Are you still interested in buying us out?" And he said yes. So he said, "How much?" And I told him, and he said, "Okay, I'll see you in the morning. We'll shake hands. That'll be it." So we basically bought and sold in the same week. So it was
best way. Most deals are done that easy too, aren't they?
It was pretty
Good
quick,
one.
and it was a bit of a shock to a lot of people. But anyway, sometimes a good decision's a good, quick decision's a good one, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Definitely. So did you ever consider doing anything else other than working on the land before you sort of got the holiday job?
Yeah, no, not really. I'm pretty much an outdoor person, and I don't think being inside all the time would suit me very much. So, and I just love farming. It's just something that I really enjoy. Even when Di and I we were working, 6.5 days a week when we had the butcher shop and our 2 properties that we had at the time, and look, it was while you're achieving something that you love doing, It's
You're right.
really,
Really sorry.
Just dying on me over here.
Sorry, I had COVID the
No,
other
that's
week,
all
and yeah, it's given me a pretty bad cough. So
fair enough.
Bit
No,
nasty.
that's right. Yeah,
And that,
so yeah, we enjoying what we're doing, and then we moved up here to a smaller property. Brought the dogs with us, of course, and supposed to be semi-retired, but I don't know. I seem to be working every day, so I don't know about the semi-retirement. So it's
and
it's all good.
we'll get onto the dogs there shortly, mate. But have you noticed, obviously being around different aspects of the livestock industry there with the butcher shop, running your own properties, have you noticed the change in stock handling techniques in your years?
Uh, yeah, look, I I don't think they've improved a hell of a lot. I think the introduction of motorbikes and all the rest of it have been a bad thing because I think, and I find with my schools even that the people who are involved with horses and ride horses are a lot easier to teach than those who haven't. And I don't think motorbikes have been a great thing for stockmanship, like and learning how the way stock move. So yeah, it's look, there's still, don't get me wrong, there's still some really good people around. I believe, look, stockman, it's a real skill. It's a natural skill that's comes with you when you're born. I think it's something that's very hard to learn, and unless you've got someone who's really dedicated to stock work and is prepared to spend a lot of time with someone, then you know it can be taught to a certain degree. But someone who's got natural skill with animals, doesn't matter whether it's dogs, horses, or cattle in particular, I think is far and way above everyone else.
Answered very well, mate.
sorry.
Yeah.
So, what was your first dog?
Ah, yeah. First dog was it was a Kelpie Collie cross, and yeah, he was he was a no frills sort of dog, but he was we were both learning and he'd done the job for me and done it very well, and I spent a lot of time with him. I'm not a big person on crowds or anything, so the guy that, as I said, that I work with for a long time, he quite often had us on working on weekends, so we didn't get a lot of time to go out and play. So, but it was all good. And then I actually, when I went to manage the property that I started on, I had actually bought a collies,
Yeah.
and and then I sort of found we were working quite a lot of stock on that place, and I just found by the end of the week they were absolutely spent. So one of my aunties actually gave me a little pure red Kelpie bitch, which was and she was quite good, really good in fact. So um, I got on really well with her and spent a lot of time with her, and actually Nancy Withers didn't live too far from me at that stage, and she had a dog called Bull and Bong Mate, and we put Mate over this little red bitch of mine, and basically that's when my purebred Kelpie stud started, and registered my stud in 1984. So it all sort of went on from there. So I was sort of after that, I was pretty much hooked on Kelpies, really.
And is there a style that you prefer?
Oh, look, I Yeah, I have had both paddock dogs and yard dogs at some different stages. I prefer a dog that I can take out and do the lot with. I find paddock dogs absolutely intriguing as to what they can do, because I like a dog with a lot of natural ability and a dog that'll think for himself. Um, so, but at the same time, I've sort of gone. I did go to the way of breeding that I wanted a dog that could do everything pretty much. That's the way I sort of went, and that's the dog I like.
Has that changed over time, or it's always been you've always been true to that?
Oh yeah, look at it. Yeah, no, I've always gone that way because with our system, the way it worked, Di and I had done all the work ourselves. Basically, the two boys helped us occasionally when they could, but we never ever employed anybody because we couldn't afford to. So
Yeah.
basically had to do everything ourselves, and the dogs up. So I spent a lot of time looking at dogs uh, before I really started to get into breeding as such. Like I went and I looked at a lot of dogs and watched a lot of dogs and their owners. I went and watched people who were successful, not only with their dogs but in their business and their life in general, because I just find that they're the most dedicated and switched on to what they're doing, and that's why they're successful. So they're disciplined.
And definitely, yeah. And what about your current team?
Okay, current team. Look, I bred some really good dogs over a long time, and I've basically stuck to two families. One of those families I've still got going. I've got a couple of dogs here that they go right back to I can trace them back to the first Kelpies I ever bred back in 1984. And the other thing that I've got are the second family that I started with, and I've been able to keep them going. And they were basically all Capri blood, with that dash of Zondo in there. And I bought a dog probably 7 or 8 years ago now, called Nitro, and back in his, and I basically bought him because not because he's a good dog, but also he had all the old Zondo, Glenlogie Lucky, all those older dogs still in there, which I have got in all my pedigrees anyway. So I was able to tie him into my breeding program. So, and I've still got him. He's a magnificent dog. Look, I've had some really good dogs over the years, and some have been really good at some things. That this fella can basically do anything and everything. A couple of the others have been able to as well. Like I find myself, really lucky and honoured to have had the dogs that I've had, because I could take them anywhere and do any job with them and be as good as anybody else, basically. So that's that was proof too that not proof. Well, it was proof, I guess, but it made me feel good that I'd done so much homework on my dogs before I really started breeding them, and then I just stuck to what was good for me. Like I originally bred dogs for my own use because I was doing a lot of stock work, sheep and cattle, and I bred them for myself. And the few that I didn't sell many pups for a long time because I wasn't really into selling them, because I just wanted to make sure that everything was right before, I let too many go, and I wanted to make sure that they were going to do my job, which was the most important thing as far as I was concerned. So, and compared to a lot of people, I probably haven't bred a lot of pups over the years. I've only ever kept 3 or 4 bitches around the place. I've got a couple farmed out to mates and things like that. But yeah, the breeding side of it to me is really important. It fascinates me. I love it. But I breed them for myself first.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that breeding there a bit later. But one thing you mentioned there was about keeping 2 different families. How did you manage to do that? Like, was there temptation to, join those and run down one line, or how did you manage to keep that going?
Yeah, look, there is, and I have done it. I have crossed those 2 families over, but I always made sure that there was progeny from both sides in that pedigree. So I made sure that that I could keep them pretty straight, or come back to either one or both of those families without changing too much. That to me was pretty important. And not, those 2 families, they were a little bit different in as much that the Bullambong mates, the original ones, were more paddocky, I guess.
Yep.
The first pup that I kept out of that mating was a dog that never ever barked, hardly ever barked in his whole life. Like he was a silent dog. He ruptured his cruciate when he was 6 months old, jumping a fence, and so he was locked up for months and months and months. And I was actually lucky at that stage, because that was a long time ago, and I actually found a horse vet in Mount Gambier who was prepared to give him a reconstruction, and that was one of the first reconstructions that had ever been done on a dog in the Kingston area.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it was quite. He was very good, this guy, but he was actually a horse vet. But he was right into surgery and fixing up, torn ligaments and ruptures and all that sort of thing. So he was very good for me. And in fact, after about 12 months work, I took that. He rang me up and said, "How's it going?" And I said, "Yeah, pretty good." And he said, "Oh, can I have a look?" So I took the dog back. And he said, "Oh, I'd like to go in there and tighten that." So he actually operated on the dog and actually tightened up this new ligament that he put in there to make the joint more stable. So it was quite amazing what he could do. And that dog went on to win me six state championships.
Yeah, wow.
Wow.
That was a dog that never ever barked, but he had so much presence. And he was a dog that probably the smartest dog I ever bred, but he just was always in the right spot, like a real good stockman. He stood in the right spot all the time. So yeah, he just knew where to be. In fact, in some trials that when I first started working him in trials, when I'd go like into the next pen, I used to actually leave him on the outside and then jump him in. Otherwise, sheep would be just banging off the rails and jumping out and doing all sorts. I probably jumped more sheep out of trial grounds with him than any other dog I've ever.
That didn't have anything to do with the shoes that the horse vet put on his feet, did it?
No, well, I don't think so. No, he was. He was a great dog.
And who was that, mate?
Pardon?
What was his name?
His name was Gus, Nakuma Gus.
Yeah.
He lived until he was 16 years old. So.
Oh wow.
And he left really good bitches, but he didn't. I never ever kept any of his males. His males just never ever really came up to scratch. I had a little bitch called Scanlan's. She was a Scanlan's bred bitch called Bindi, and probably the toughest bitch that I've ever owned my whole life. had no fear of any stock, and I put Gus over her. It was just a complete experiment, and not one of them turned out. I kept myself and gave 2 to mates because I didn't know what was going to happen, and yes, not one of them was any good. So that was in the early days of my looking into breeding, and it was my first probably lesson of what to do or what not to do breeding dogs.
Why do you think that didn't turn out? Any?
They were just too different. The bloods were too different, and they just didn't match. And it's hard to know why, but she was probably very strongly bred back to Scanlon's lines. I don't know, because I didn't. That was when I was just starting off breeding dogs. But it just didn't click at all. But it made me. That's what made me really stop and think and look about putting dogs together and talking to different people like Steve and Chris and guys like that, into their heads a bit and talking with them. Just listening and learning to what other people had to say, and as I said before, just people who've been successful with their dogs and stock. So that made me really sit down and look at pedigrees and set things up before I went any further. And it took me 5 years. I didn't breed a pup for nearly 5 years after that. So,
yeah, right.
And so these days,
nearly scared me off.
And these days, what are you looking for in your line?
Look, I temperament for me is paramount. Obviously, confirmation is a big thing as well. I mean, they've got to be put together properly. I'm big on feet and eyes and jaws and teeth and things like that. But temperament, natural ability, they're the 3 main things I look at after confirmation, of course. But temperament to me is just, if you haven't got temperament, it's just so difficult to work. I've had dogs here that I've purchased and pups and that are, and I've been to other people's places and looked at dogs and they've got to have a good temperament to fit my temperament as well. So,
Matt Jackson has asked, who are your most influential dogs? And if you could have an old one back, who would it be?
oh, that's hard. I had a dog called Capri Sledge, who was he was by Horton's Squire, sorry. And he was probably the hardest dog that I ever broke in, but he was one of the best dogs that I ever owned. He was super strong. I seen him, and same deal. He hardly ever barked, and he did not bite. But I seen him walk a cow and a calf backwards over a ridge one day, and I mean, as much as I loved old Gus, and I'd love another one of him, I would dearly love to have another Sledge.
Yep. Yeah. Sorry, we're just going through some different questions here. Anyone else?
No, look, not really. I had a couple of really nice bitches. I had a bitch called, there was 3 actually, and they were all. It all started off. I bought a female off Rick Sims, and she was a Zondo granddaughter, and we put Capri Shep over her, who was by Zondo, obviously. And that started off a fantastic bitch line for me. I kept a female out of there called Becky, and she bred another female that I kept called Amy, and she bred another one called Roxy. And I reckon Roxy was probably the best bitch I ever bred.
Yep.
Yeah. What made her the best bitch, mate?
Just smart, strong. Sledge was a dog that, as I said, he was super strong, and he always walked in with he never ever crouched or clapped on the ground or anything. He just walked in with his head up, tail out, like just take me on, and he never ever took a step back. I can remember trialing him at different places, and a sheep had jack him up, and I had trouble stopping him from walking in. If I could have got a reverse on him, which I try and do. A lot of my dogs, I don't like them going backwards unless I tell them to. But he was a dog that never ever took a backward step, and quite often, I'd get to a situation and a sheep would end up going over the top of him, but he'd get rolled by a steer or a cow or something, and he'd just get up and stand up and walk straight back in, and he was one tough mother, I'll tell you.
I'm waiting for you to finish that. I'm like, oh, here we go. You want to get the beef going.
Yeah, no, of course, he was a tough dog. I know. I remember I was having trouble breaking him in, and I was talking to Chris once, and he said, "Mate, the only way you're going to break that dog is to get in his head." So,
yeah,
I think I eventually I think we came to the conclusion that let's just work together and not against each other. So it was a good combination in the end, and he bred me some very, very good progeny. Very good progeny.
Another question here from Danny Kerr. Is there a dog that someone else has owned that you'd like to get, and why?
Not really.
no, that's wrong.
Look, I've seen a lot of dogs, and when you get into a breeding program like you do, if you do it properly, you get to a stage where am I going to find another sire, or because you get to a stage in breeding where unless you can find a dog with some sort of an outcross but not a full outcross, it can be difficult. And sometimes I've looked and looked and looked and looked and haven't been able to find anything better than what I've actually got, in the past. And so it is difficult. I mean, some of the couple of the dogs I would like, no one would want to get rid of. So, that's the other thing.
So you mentioned there, like, sometimes you can't find better than what you had in the past. Do you have an opinion on AI and using older dogs that aren't around anymore compared to what you can find now?
Yes, definitely. Look, AI is a fantastic thing. I wish the hell I'd have taken or kept some semen out of Sledge in particular, because of his pedigree, his strong genetic background. But I didn't at that stage. AI was really just starting to get going a bit, but I must admit, I could have done it and should have done it, because I had a friend called Margie Trowbridge. She's right into AI and all the rest of it, and she's a vet. And she said to me at that stage, like, the conception rates aren't very good, and storing's okay, but you can spend a lot of money and not get very far. But since then things have changed. So that's my one big regret, is not keeping some semen out of Sledge. Out of all the other dogs I've had, look, I think a dog has got to be exceptional for you to be able to keep his semen.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Definitely.
I don't think there's any point keeping semen out of, you know, there's a lot of good dogs around, but I don't think there's much point keeping semen out of just a good dog. He's got to be an exceptional dog, in my opinion.
No, absolutely, mate. And a question here from the Minister of Finance, War and Peace, otherwise known as Natalie. What are you looking for when considering a future joining for yourself?
Look, probably just what I said before. As I said, they've got to be put together properly, obviously. And it's the confirmation thing is, I guess it's everybody's opinion, but when I first look at dogs, the first thing I look at when I'm looking at them is they've got to have good feet. Obviously, I like a reasonably big dog, so I want a dog with a reasonable chest cavity and that can run. With my pups, when they're young, I make them a lot to develop the lungs.
Yep.
And but yeah, confirmation, temperament. If I'm looking to do any joinings with any dog or even male, anything, it's got to have a good temperament. I could honestly say that I've never ever had anyone bitten by one of my dogs ever. So that they've got to have a lot of naturality, obviously. I like dogs to think for themselves. I've one property I managed had a lot of scrub on it, and we used to have to drive the weathers off that place about 10 k's down to this little skinny road, and had to scrub each side of it and things like that. And you know, Sledge in particular, he was a great lead dog, and you know, you'd be driving miles weathers, a couple of 1,500 weathers down the skinny little road, and all of a sudden they'd stretch out a bit, and all of a sudden they'd stop, and you knew damn well that he's up there, so you'd catch up, and then you'd give a whistle and away they'd go, and I'd hardly ever see him. He'd be out in the scrub. He knew damn well what he was doing, and that you just can't teach that. You know, that's just born and bred in them. And those things, like those champions, that they've got that, you know, that's born. We can breed as much as we like, and it'd be nice to breed champions, but there's just always that one exceptional one that comes along, and not very many of them, mind you. Very, very few, and I'm getting less and less of those real exceptional.
Why do you think that we are getting less and less?
I probably shouldn't say this, but
Maybe I deserve a bag of dog food tonight.
I can see your head ticket over there. What are you going to ask here?
I honestly don't think there's enough people studying the breeding that they're doing. I think nowadays we're getting a lot of maters instead of breeders, and a lot of that is caused by money. People are breeding for money, and I think if we could get, and I've had 2 or 3 young people come to me and ask me about breeding and things like that. So I sit down and I get out, you know, pedigrees, and I set them out, and I say to them, now, you know, this is what I pedigree. Every matings we do, we set out pedigrees before we do them, and we make sure that we've got a pretty fair idea of what we're going to get before they even hit the ground. So that to me is important, and I think that's that's a little bit of a problem in as people aren't really studying the breeding as much as they maybe should. Bloodlines are getting mixed up too much. So only my opinion, mind you. But
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And mate, is there a criteria that a bitch needs to meet for you to breed from her?
Oh yeah, definitely. Look, I never breed from a bitch until she's at least 2.5.
Yep.
Got to have every work trait that I want. I like, as I said before, I love paddock dogs, because if you can't get them in the yard, this is not. You're battling up against it for a start. I like it. I like a bitch that'll cast a bit. She can come in, can give the sheep a bit of distance, but I like a dog that'll come in when you ask them to as well. Like I like a dog that's got a bit of natural bark. I don't like just. I want bark when I ask for it. I just don't like dogs barking for no reason. The other thing is I like them strong, and those real strong dogs are getting harder and harder to find as well. So I just think that some ways the way we've gone, we've softened them up a bit too much.
Yeah.
Look, I like it. I like a female that's feminine, and can be a little bit softer in nature. But when we go to work, I want them to work, because I don't like dogs jumping all over you and things like that. I like them to come up and sit alongside you and put their head on you and be, submissive and be, be nice to be around. And I find that I get better breeding success out of those bitches than I do the real hard-headed ones.
Yep.
Uh,
So, do you believe that the sire or the dam has more influence over their litter of pups?
yeah, I think the females do have probably a bit more influence over the over the pups in general.
Yep.
When I look around, look, say 20 years ago or 15 years ago, when I was right into trialing and things like that, you could go to a trial and you'd have dogs like Watch and Shep, Basil and Buster and Zondo and Mac and Sam and Mako and Boss and all those dogs. They were all around.
Never heard of any of them.
Yeah, they were all around that same era, and they were
Yeah.
dogs. They were dogs that a lot of them were related, mind you, but in one way or another. But they were all trying around about the same time, and they were one hell of a group of dogs that you could, if you had the right bitches, you could take real good bitches to any one of those dogs if you could line them up. But whereas now, I just find it harder to find when you go to.
Oh no, we've lost your voice. One sec, mate. We just wait for your internet service to pop back up here. He's had another call.
Yeah. No.
Let's give him a tingle.
Here we go. How's that going now?
I can hear you. Can you
Gotcha.
hear me?
We got you too.
Tag, you're in.
Dear, I don't know what's going on. You wait until I get hold of these guys that have been ringing me up.
Yeah. They'll be hearing all about it.
That's all right.
Sure.
What we'll do, we just got a couple of questions here. We'll get through some more and then we'll change here. So the question here from you want to answer?
Yeah. Question here from Damon Hunt. What advice would you give to someone picking their first pup?
Pick one you like. Look, first up, go to someone who, as I said before, go to someone who works livestock for a living. if you go to their property, and I like to see dogs, pups in particular, humanised is what I call it. We spend a lot of time with our pups right from once their eyes open, and so they are used to being held, talked to, all the rest of it. So the first thing that I would say to anybody, obviously, when they're going to look at pups, obviously do your homework before you go. If you can see the parents' work, ask to see the parents' work. If you can't if you can't see the parents' work, I'd go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Pick a pup you really, really like, because at the end of the day, you've got to like the pup and it's got to like you. I like a reasonably bold pup that comes up to me and is friendly and obviously, once again, like, just make sure they're put together properly, their conformation's good, the hips are good and all the rest of it. But just pick one. If you go to a really good, reputable breeder who's been breeding pups for quite some time, he's experienced, he's dedicated, and good at what he does, and he's got quite a few of the progeny there, or past progeny there himself, that he's using, that's a pretty good sign. But if you do that, go to a good reputable breed, then pick out a pup that you really like. Because if you pick one that you're not quite happy with, or someone tries to talk you into it, if you get that pup home and something goes wrong, you will never like it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Good advice. Good advice.
On from that, Dave has asked, what age do you start your pups, and how old are the pups when you choose to keep them? Or
I picked my pups. Yeah, I picked my pups pretty early. As I said, I like a bold, outgoing pup. But look, sometimes I'll pick them. They might be 3 or 4 weeks old, 4 weeks old. But I personally, I don't start my pups on sheep or stock or sheep until they're about 3 months old. I think I see people put 6 and 8 week old pups on sheep, and sometimes, not always, but a lot of times, all they're doing is chasing sheep, and they've got to remember that 6 or 8 week old pup might only weigh 3 or 4 kilos, and if it gets trodden on or landed on by a 60 kilo sheep or wether or ewe or lamb or whatever, that's the end of the story. So, but it's everybody's got their own ideas on that. But when my pups are 8 weeks old and I've got collars on them, I tie them up on a short chain in the back of my buggy. I tow them around everywhere with me. I might have 4 or 5 in there, and so they get used to being on a short chain, not a long chain, and they get used to a short chain really quickly. And then, I lead them around, and when the granddaughters come down, they get a job. They're leading pups around and all the rest of it. So
I'm sure they're not complaining.
No, they're not complaining at all. And then, but mind you, I've got to decipher some of the names that they give them. And then look, look after that, and by 3 months, 10 or 12 weeks old, they're normally coming to their name and all the rest of it, and then the first time, about 3 months old, I'll just put them in with some quiet sheep, and it's mainly just to have a look at what I've got. So I've usually got a pretty fair idea because of the matings we're doing, but the first look is just really just to get an idea on what they're going to do. So, and I might show them sheep a couple of times. If they don't show anything first up, it doesn't really worry me too much. I'll take them back and give them another look in a week or so. But and then I'll show them sheep. I might show them sheep 2 or 3 times, and then it doesn't worry me if they don't see sheep for probably a month or so after that. Then I'll take them back, and because they do change, they change all the time. And then look, once they're sort of 4 or 5 months old, that's when I sort of start doing more and more with them, and hopefully each time we take them out, we see something a bit better and a bit more exciting. And I just love watching 10, 12-week or 12-week-old pups. You put them in with sheep, and sometimes it's just instant, and you think, wow, that is just so cool. So,
do you have an age limit where you like them to see something from them, and if they hit that, you're like, oh, I might move them on?
Yeah, look, as long as they're showing me something. If they get to 6 or 8 months old, and they're not showing me anything at all or very little, I find it really hard to keep interested in them. But at the same time, I really haven't had that problem for a long, long time, years in fact. But if I've kept 2 or 3 pups out of a litter, and I'm having a look at them and to pick out a particular one, or I'm picking out a pup for someone else, I just like them to do what my criteria of pups and dogs work and dog work is in general, because if they're doing the wrong thing, it's I usually move them on pretty quick. So look, I have got a fair criteria on what I like to see, and it's not so much a time thing with pups in general. It's just the quality of work that they're doing.
Yeah.
That interests me more.
Yeah, awesome.
And what's your ideal training setup? Round yard?
Yeah. I actually, when I came here to this property, I actually purchased a set of sheep yards to set up specifically for training pups and dogs, and it's got quite a big round yard, which I do start pups off in. But as soon as I've got a good right and left on them, and they're balancing up properly, I've set this property up so that I've got quite a big round yard, and then I've got a holding yard that's probably about an acre, and then I've got another one behind that that's probably 4 or 5 acres, and then another one behind that that's 10 acres. Yeah. And then we go out in the paddock. So basically I train them in stages, but as soon as they've got a real good grip on their sheep or on their stock in general, I'll take them outside. I rarely give a dog or a pup yard work until it's 6 or 8 months old, probably 8 months old. Yeah, they don't get much yard work at all, really. Because as I said, I think, well, for me anyway, all my commands and everything are exactly the same in the paddock as what they are in the yard, or exactly the same in the yard as what they are in the paddock. So look, the paddock work to me, and to get them exactly where I want them at a particular age is more important than yard work, because as I said before, like if you can't get your sheep in the yard, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about starting yard work, what age would you normally start to do some work in a race?
Look,
or what do you
10 months old.
Sorry?
Like backing in a race and things like that, you mean? Yeah, 10 months old. 8
Yeah.
or 10 months. Look, I've got a small yard at the back of the race where I'll start teaching them or encouraging them to back. But I never put my pups in a situation where they're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
And it depends on the sheep you're using too. You know, like I start my pups and young dogs off on, or my pups off on some trained sheep. But as soon as they can handle a few sheep, I put them out, and I'll change my sheep over quite regularly so that there's a bit of movement in them. I don't like. I see people putting pups on 3 or 4 trained sheep and walking around the paddock with them and saying, look how good they are, and all the rest of it, and all that's happening is the sheep is following the trainer. The dog's doing a bit, but it's, to me, I like them to, once I've taught them or got them to, covering or getting around their stock properly, I want them to get to the head and pull a sheep up. And so I like my sheep to run a bit. I don't want them just following me around, because they're not going to learn anything by doing that.
Yeah. And how do you go about putting a sit or a stop on your pups?
Yeah, look, we do it. I do it a little bit when they're that 3-month-old, before the 3-month-old stage, when I'm doing that. But when I start them on sheep in the yard, in the round yard, I rarely do much with them at all, other than use their natural ability. I think if the breeding's been done properly, and the dog has got good temperament and they've got a good natural ability, it's just a matter of you shaping it into what you want. Because if you can, I've seen so many people take a natural heading instinct out of a dog, and it infuriates me, because that's what they're bred for. They're bred to stop sheep running away from you, or stock. Now, if you take that heading ability out of them, like, you're almost back to square one. So I basically just shape my pups into what I want, and it's a matter of me getting in the right spot. I'll put a sit and a stop on them as we're going. Like once I start them again at, say, 5 or 6 months old, then I start. But I prefer my dogs to stop rather than sit, because I want them on their feet, ready to go, and I want them looking and watching. I see so many people these days, they've got so much control on their dogs that dog's he's not game to bloody move until he's told to. And that, to me, is just, it's not good stockmanship.
Yeah. Sorry, it's going to make you cry, mate, but it's just started raining here.
Good on you. Send it over this way.
Yeah, well,
you can have it.
We'll get the fans out. We'll blow it back down to you. We've had bloody enough here, anyways.
Fourth flood if it keeps up.
Yeah, no, and mate, just on what you're saying there, I totally get that. You like to leave a bit of your dog in your dog, and I suppose a lot of us these days like to have a bit more control. And I suppose everybody's got their own thing there, So I really
absolutely
appreciate your opinion on that.
Yeah,
mate,
look,
you keep going.
Sorry, keep going.
It's a matter of the way you work your stock too. Like to me, working livestock is all about creating flow, and once you get flow going, and sheep heading or stock heading in the right direction of where you want, all you need to do is be able to hold your dog off or slow them down. And I teach my dogs to walk slowly, walk quicker, slow, quick. I'll sort of walk up they'll start and they'll go a bit quick, and I'll say, now that's not walking, and they'll slow down and things like that. And, you know, like if you spend a lot of time with your dogs doing that sort of thing, you can teach them heaps. But and I think that's one of the worst things that's with motorbikes. That motorbikes shouldn't come out with horns on them. They should be thrown away because you see so many people back there toot, 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 when really, you know, you need, once you get your stock broken in properly and they're heading in the right direction, at a good walking pace and all the rest of it, you know, what's the point of hunting them along at 20 k's an hour? You'll get there a lot quicker, but by the time you get there, your livestock is so stirred up and fired up and all the rest of it that all it does is create stress for everybody.
And being an ex-butcher, you don't want to be running the weight off them, right?
Dead right.
Mate, so you mentioned starting your Kelpie start in 1984. When did you start trialling?
It started. Oh, that's when I registered my first. My start. I started trialing in '84 as well, but I used a couple of dogs. Or Nancy Withers loaned me a couple of dogs, and I used to work a few of her young dogs before I started really breeding my own. And I was probably lucky enough that one of the dogs that she loaned me, the first trial I ever went in was a local farmer's trial, and I won it. So that sort of got me hooked, and then it sort of went from there. So 1984 was when I actually had my first couple of trials. Didn't do much until probably 1986 when I started. That's when I started travelling and doing a few outside. I used to travel, you know, to Deniliquin, Swan Hill, all over the place with one dog, mind you.
Yeah.
And what type of trialing?
I've had a go at 3 sheep trialing, and it's probably doesn't suit me in as much that I'm not a person that likes to sit around for too long. So I can't afford to sit around for all day and only have 1 or 2 runs. So that 3 sheep trialing didn't really suit me anyway. I didn't have the right dogs for it at that stage, and I don't know, you've got to have, with Kelpies in particular, you've got to have the right Kelpie to work a 3 sheep trial, and so they're just not bumping them off course all the time. Have done a few utility trials early in the piece when I had Sledge and Willie and Becky and them going in Victoria. Not so much. We don't have many in South Australia, unfortunately. But I enjoyed the odd utility trial, but I mainly done yard trials, to be quite honest, and pretty much all over Australia, really.
And do you have a favourite trial to participate in?
I've probably got a couple, really, but Lucendale Field Days trial is at Lucendale in South Australia is probably the one that I really enjoy. We have a trial at Karoonda up in the Mallee, which is a very good trial, and they're very good sheep because they're sort of Mallee sheep, and we always get pretty towy sort of weathers out of the scrub and that sort of thing up there. So they certainly sort a few dogs out. So and also the yards up there are quite big. Like they don't mind having big forcing yards and pens and stuff like that. So your dog's got to have a bit in it to be able to get around that course properly. So I find that enjoyable and challenging. But Lucendale is also a good course. So
yeah, definitely. So do you believe trials stimulate real work?
I think they've helped trials of yard trials in particular, and probably utility trials. I think they've helped they've made people more aware of what dogs can do, and the value of dogs. I don't know that it's improved the dogs. The dogs, I guess, the quality of dogs has improved, but it's a matter of whether and the style of work's changed too, of course. But yeah, I don't know that it's always a good thing. Trialling's not always a good thing if you want a really good station dog. You know, like a dog that you can take to work every day. Pardon?
That's going to bring us back to a question here. Like, we hear debates that trial dogs don't make real dogs. What's your take when you hear that statement being thrown around?
I think there are a lot of trial dogs that are trialling with people who've only got 50 acres and 50 sheep.
Yep.
And I don't know that that's not always good for dogs in general, because it gives some people that go there and watch these dogs get a false idea on what they really like at home. And don't you worry, you know, like out in the station country and things like that, there's magnificent dogs out there that we will never, ever see, or people never see. Yeah. But they are just some magnificent dogs. And unfortunately, we never see them. But getting back to your question, it's, yeah, look, I'd say some farm dogs, station dogs, make good trial dogs, but a lot of trial dogs don't make good station dogs. How's that?
Yeah. Fair enough. That's good. That's cool.
What do you feel is your best trialling achievement, or just a special moment to you?
Well, same deal. I've got a couple, I guess. Obviously, winning my first trial was good, but when I won the Australian Championship with Willie was certainly a highlight and something that I'll never forget, because it was just, it was just something that was absolutely fantastic. But I had another one where there was 6 dogs in the South Australian Yard Dog Championship once, and I actually had 4 of them in there, and 3 of them were ones that I'd bred myself. Okay. So that to me was probably one of my biggest achievements, was having bred my own dogs and having at that level of that standard of trialling. So that to me was pretty good. But I certainly enjoyed winning a national with Willie, that's for sure.
Well, they're not giving away, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's an awesome achievement, mate. And mate, in your travels throughout Australia, is there something that you see handlers struggle with, or where do you believe, or somewhere you believe they can improve?
I think people could improve quite a lot by giving their dogs a bit more give them their head a bit more, like I just see so many dogs nowadays, like they're just so overcommanded, and as I said before, I've judged trials where some dogs aren't game to move, and I've seen the sheep move off, and these dogs will not move until they're told to. And I just think that some people, they need to, give their dogs a bit more, use their own brains a bit more, providing they've got them, of course. But look, it's just, I don't know. I think I just love going and watching people who work stock every day, because they're the ones that understand how stock move, and they allow their dogs to move in the same way. They make good position themselves, and they let the dog do the work. And I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's only my opinion, of course, but I just think a lot of dogs, as I said before, state or farm station dogs make good trial dogs, but some trial dogs, if you took them home, you would never get your work done.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And what advice would you give to someone wanting to come into the industry?
The agricultural industry, you mean? Farming industry or trialling?
Probably the ag industry.
Yep. Okay. Just as I said before, go to people who are successful in what they're doing. If you're going to buy pups or dogs or anything like that, insist on seeing the parents' work. If you can't, well, I think there's a reason. People who are successful, doesn't matter whether it's in trial, as I said before, whether it's trialing in their business, in their everyday life and their attitude towards people in general, their people skills, all that sort of thing. They're the ones you need to go to, because they're the ones that you can learn from. Those people, most of them, will give you some sort of information and help on what you want to know. And don't be frightened to ask questions. And the same thing with training schools. Go to people who work stock. Go to people who have been successful in what they're doing. If they're running a school, go to that school. There are so many schools these days, and I think some people go to so many different schools that they get a bit confused sometimes, because different handlers have different methods, and sometimes they conflict. So, and time is the thing. If you want a dog that's a bit above the rest, and you've got a really good pup or young dog, put the time in. If you don't put the time in, you won't get the result. If you want something special, I'm always looking for something a little bit special, something a little bit, beyond your everyday dog. So you need to put in time, effort, and have, if you do that and spend time with your dogs and pups, they'll respect you for it. If you've got a pup that doesn't like you because you don't spend time with it, you're really battling uphill. So it's that respect and time and persistence that you really need, and don't give up. If you get a good one, don't give up.
Some very good advice there, mate. And mate, is there someone you'd like us to sit down, or see us sit down and have a chat to on Dog Talk?
There is a lady that I'd love for you to talk to, but I don't know whether she would. Her name is Sally Stanley from over in Victoria. Sally she's been a great dog person for a long time, and she's a very good stock person as well. She's owned her own land. She's worked in sale yards, and she's been. I seen her just recently, and she told me that she's now dogless. She has no dogs at all. So, which is a bit strange, but when we used to go to Hamilton or Bathurst or anywhere, when Sally was there, you always knew that it was going to be a good competition, because even though she's a quiet little English lady, she is one fierce competitor, believe me. She used to turn up. She'd turn up in her old Valiant and with the dog trailer on behind, and half a dozen dogs. And she had some very, very good ones too, don't you worry. And so she's one. It would be great if she would talk to you, but and I guess the other one, if she doesn't want to talk to you, John Getty, to be a great guy to talk to.
Yep.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Cool, mate. Was that time of the night, mate? Was there a question that was asked tonight that stood out for you, and they will win a bag of Enduro Plus working dog?
What was the one? Was it Damon or Damien?
Damon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He asked
He asked about picking a first pup.
I actually like the way you answered that. That's why that was stuck out of my head as well. So, Damon Hunt. So, Damon, if you'd like to send your details through, mate, there'll be a bag of Enduro Plus working dog with real kangaroo meat coming your way. And Lyndon, for being a guest tonight, you'll also have a bag of Enduro Plus coming your way.
Cool, thank you. I like Laura's question too, but I've been lucky with her.
I do need some dog food.
Look, thank you very much for having me on. I feel honoured to be able to come on and talk to you guys, particularly with some of the other guys you've had on. I feel quite humbled. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for getting on, mate. But you're not getting off the hook that easy. You still got one more question.
The trick question.
No trick to it. There's no right answer. That's the thing. So would you rather one duck the size of a horse or 20 horses the size of ducks?
I think I'd go with the horse, because I think I could dodge one horse quicker than I could dodge 20 ducks.
Very cool, mate. And once again, thank you very much for your time tonight. Much appreciated. And thanks to all our guests out there. And please remember, we learn every day, and the day we stop learning will be a sad one for all.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
No, thanks, mate. Cheers.